I'm Elaine Cobb, reporting from Paris. France has been hit by a series of heat waves this summer that began in May. There have been searing temperatures across the country. At one point in May, it was hotter in Brittany and the northwest than down on the Mediterranean coast. The summer has also seen wildfires in many parts of France, particularly in the southwest and the south, but also in the forest at Fontainebleau near Paris. Climate scientists tell us this pattern of more frequent, more intense heat waves and higher temperatures is something we can expect every summer or almost every summer going forward. Aurélien Coste is a fire scientist from Bordeaux, southwest France, now based in the US in California. Aurélien, thank you for talking to Reporting from Paris.
Thank you, Elaine, for having me.
Now, you deal a lot with fire modeling. Can you tell us what is that and how important is it?
So fire modeling is a part of science where we try to understand the processes underlying fire progression, trying to understand the link between the fuels, the topography, the wind, and the weather that are going to influence the fire progression.
And how important is that at a time of wildfires and heat waves?
So wildfires are a very complex phenomenon that we don't really understand very well still. So we need the model to grasp all the complexity, try to evaluate the fuel moisture, try to evaluate the fuel load, and try to link all the different pieces together because the fires are a multi-scale process. It means that we need to be able to represent the small flames at the needle scale and also be able to represent all the plume dynamics that will, create thunderstorms.
And how far ahead can you predict all of that, and with how much certainty?
The certainty, that's the very difficult part. We are able to forecast fires a couple of days in advance. Usually our forecast are 48 hours, but we can forecast what smoke is doing, where the smoke is going for multiple days in advance. But for the fire itself, mostly 2 days.
Of course, smoke is also a huge problem, causing respiratory problems in people, sometimes days after a fire, and also much farther away, as we saw this year when people in Montpellier and even as far as Lyon in the east could smell and see the smoke and be affected by the fires in the southwest.
Absolutely. Usually the flames are impacting thousands of people. We had, more than 100,000 people evacuated due to the fire in the southwest here, but the smoke are impacting millions of people, and we can see it here in France, but we also are seeing it in the US with the Canadian fires affecting, air quality in the US. So even from the fires on Western US affecting Eastern US.
Fires and smoke know no borders.
Exactly.
Is this becoming increasingly necessary, being able to model fire movements?
Yes, because the fires are more intense and they are bigger. So, when you want to control a fire, you have to have firefighters in active areas. But if you have more active areas, it's more difficult for the firefighters to effectively have active suppression of the fire. So the bigger the fire, the more tools you need to be able to anticipate where you need to have active suppression and where you can, let the fire burn when it's not super intense so you can treat it later on.
How much of an impact is climate change having on forest fires and their frequency or intensity?
So we could see in recent years, the fires are increasing in power, in number, and in burn area. Just this year, we have record-breaking burn area in the US, and we can see that fires in France are also bigger and also up north. We would not expect fires to be up north like the Fontainebleau or up north of the Loire River. But this is happening now due to climate change. So we need to adapt our strategy to position firefighters and defense strategy to be able to manage those fires up north.
Yes, the map of forest fires around France was quite astonishing this summer, looking at fires in Normandy near Paris and in places you would not expect.
Exactly. And some of them were very intense. The Fontainebleau fire was really a big one with crowning fire. So the canopy was also burning, which is something you would not expect there.
How responsible are humans for forest fires? I don't mean people who stupidly throw away a cigarette, but things like building in forested areas or farming practices.
So humans are responsible for over 90% of fires. So we are responsible not because we want to light the fire by ourselves, but mostly accidents or farming or having, heavy equipments in very intense heat waves. Those are the cause of most fires.
You're originally from Bordeaux and you're now down there with the fires. What's it like going home to these scenes?
It was sad because that's the forest I grew up in. So it's difficult for me to, watch this forest burn. Fortunately, my family is safe, but it's not the case for some of our friends because more than 240 homes were destroyed during the Somos fire. So it is a very devastating fire.
Tell me about the forests in that area. There were a lot of pines planted, particularly along Les Landes, along the coastline, but that's not the case for everywhere down there.
No, but mostly the land forest in the southwest France is 3 million acres of pine forest plantations, mostly. So it is a very continuous fuel bed for fire to develop. So that's a very fire-prone area, and maritime pines are very flammable species. So if you add the understory fuel as well, you have a recipe for big fires, and especially after the drought that we had in June and in July with the precipitation deficit. The fuel were very flammable, and with the wind, it was a very fast spreading fire, so very difficult to control.
What's your prediction for the rest of this summer season into autumn for fires, given that it's still very dry?
It's still very dry, so it's still very dangerous. It's difficult to say up until the end of summer because we can have rain. And that's really what we hope for, to be able to extinguish those fires, because even if the fire is not progressing anymore, the fire can remain underneath, underground for weeks. And the only way to stop it is rain. So we are really hoping for rain. And if rain doesn't come, yes, we'll remain in high danger situation for the rest of the summer, even in fall.
Are you optimistic for forests and woodlands?
I prefer to remain optimistic always. I think people learn and then people now are more aware of the danger that surrounds us, especially in the forest area. And I'm optimistic because I saw how many people were involved in trying to defend the land, not only from the Bordeaux area, but also from all around France. For the southwest, for Fontainebleau, now there are fire in the southeast of France, and people are already engaged in trying to defend their land. Even if they are not firefighters, they are trying to help. And I think now people are more aware of the danger and what to do and what not to do in these situations.
Aurélien Coste, thank you very much for talking to Reporting from Paris.
Thank you very much for having me.
That solidarity will be more and more important as heat waves and wildfires become more frequent and more intense. Weather forecaster Olivier Proust is with Météo France, the French weather service. Thank you so much for talking to Reporting from Paris. What is happening to the weather in France?
Obviously, this is the global warming. It means average temperatures are increasing. To make these mean temperatures increasing, the new climate is every day rewriting its own story. These new events, we could call them historical. In fact, they are not historical. They are unprecedented, but they are the new patterns of summer in France. I'm sorry to say that these conditions are not that unusual, and it's not the climatological black swan we could have experienced in 2003. It's just the summer new patterns in France and in all the Western Europe. The history of the climate is written now, just now, and the next summer and the next and next summer. Obviously, to make the mean temperature increase by 0.5 degrees each decade, you have to experience this kind of situation. And we have to get used to have some summer when the conditions are very anticyclonic. They will have extreme temperature going around. Everything is predicted from 2 decades. We know that it's warming in summer, in winter, and in France, in Western Europe, the warming is very intense. And we know that. And now the weather is doing what we have predicted.
So how difficult is it for you to forecast the weather at the moment when there are these strong heat waves and when you have this kind of heat coming from Africa? Does it make it more complicated? Can you see the next few months?
I've been a weather forecaster for almost 30 years. I learned the weather in the late 90s, and everything is new. Now, today, everything is new. New air masses, new temperatures, 35 degrees from the last century now are 40. I mean, in Nantes, in Bordeaux, in Paris, you can experience 40 degrees. I learned weather forecasting and it was 35 degrees. So everything is changing, and in the way I analyze the forecast, the weather, see almost every day new parameters, very hot and hotter. So it makes forecasting every day a little bit new.
Many wildfires have sprung up across France, partly due to the heat and also the drought, because there's been so little rainfall in France since the winter and early spring. Tell me more about what's happening with rainfall in France this year.
At the end of spring, the ground, the soil were wet, historically wet, and at the end of spring, the first heat wave occurred, and then the second, and then the third, and then a lack of precipitations, and now the soils are dry. It's historically dry. The fires are very big and very affect a large or broad part of France because of these soils which are very, very dry, and the air temperatures are very, very high. So it's dry, it's hot, and there's a little bit of wind. So everything is here to make this fire becoming, for example, like in Bordeaux, mega fire. Now it's interesting because actually with the big fires near Bordeaux, in fact, it creates clouds. The fire creates its own cloud that can make some lightning, and that can make the fire feel bigger and bigger.
Is it particularly dangerous?
It's dangerous because it makes the fire erratic, because the down burst goes in all directions and can make the fire spread in all directions. Whereas, for example, the wind is just south, it can still spread the fire southward, eastward, westward. So for the fire worker, it's a very intense work.
Wind, of course, plays a big part of spreading wildfires. Are the winds following normal patterns at the moment, or are we seeing any kind of unusual wind patterns that people should be aware of?
Actually, the wind direction, the wind chronology, the intensity of the winds are normal. For example, in the southwest, this afternoon, the westerly winds will blow to 40 kilometers per hour, like in Provence. And it's normal because it's close to the ocean.
You say that during your 30 years in weather forecasting, you've already seen a big change.
Yes.
The kind of temperatures and movements we have now. I know it's hard for you to predict longer term, but do you expect to see more of this? Do you think that if I were to call you in 10 years' time, you'd be saying, well, of course, the temperatures are always much higher now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, obviously, yeah. And everybody in climate, in meteorology, wants it. Everything is going very quickly, and the way we have figured out it will come. And so, no, the 50 degrees will arrive in the next decade in Europe, and there will be more and more 40 degrees, and one summer will be just one heat wave for 3 months, and all this stuff will happen. Yeah, I really think so. And this is the global warming. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your help, and good talking to you.
As the fires are brought under control, residents who were forced to flee head back to survey the devastation and hope their homes were spared. Firefighters finally take a break in one region, but they know their work this summer is far from over as new areas across France fall prey to the flames. Elaine Cobb reporting from Paris.